I'd like to open the meeting of the Monday, December 2nd, December 6th, 2021, 6 p.m. meeting of the Union County Board of Commissioners. As usual, we will begin with invocation, and this evening, Commissioner David Williams, if you'd lead us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all safely here tonight as we do the people's business. We ask you to give us discernment, clarity, and wisdom as we deliberate on the issues of the day. Help us to make decisions for the county in a spirit of humility and peace and mutual respect. Help us also to keep in prayer those in our community who struggle. For those who are lonely or grieving, we ask for comfort and companionship. This time of year can be especially hard. For those in poor health, we ask for healing and relief. For those who despair, we ask for hope. For those who suffer from physical want, we ask for your provision. Lastly, we offer you thanksgiving, Lord. Thank you for our many and manifold blessings. Thank you for our first responders who day and night come to our aid and help to keep us safe. For all of this we pray, amen.
Stand for
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I will turn the meeting over to Manager Watson for the election of our officers.
Thank you, Commissioner Helms. Members of the board, now comes the time for the election of officers of the Board of County Commissioners for the coming year. I will take nominations for the chair first, and then we'll have the vote based on those nominations. Once the chair is selected, we'll open the floor for nominations for vice chair. We'll have those, the vote for that office. Following those elections, the chair and the vice chair will take their oaths of office. So at this time, I will open the floor for nominations for the chair of the Union County Board of Commissioners. Do I have any nominations?
Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sampson.
First, let me say I have enjoyed and appreciate the 5 members that serve on this board, including myself. I've enjoyed it myself. And they all bring talents to the board, and I think we work together well as a group. When I consider someone for chairman, the first thing they have to have is a desire and a willingness to take on the responsibility. They have to want the job of board leadership. Secondly, I think an important, something that is important is a passion and a curiosity for the issues. They need to study the agendas. They need to delve into the issues so that they're well informed. And finally, a willingness to reach out to the stakeholders in opposition in order to understand and build consensus. I think Commissioner Dennis Rape has exhibited those traits, and so I'd like to take this opportunity to nominate him for chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sampson. We have a nomination of Commissioner Rape for chair of the Union County Board of Commissioners. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing no further nominations, the nominations are closed. Now comes the vote for the chair of the Union County Board of Commissioners. All those in favor of Commissioner Dennis Rape to serve as chairman of the Union County Board of Commissioners signify by the raising of your right hand.
Aye.
I see all 5 commissioners voting for that. Congratulations, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Helms, for your service this year.
Thank you very much.
I'll now open the floor for nominations for Vice Chair of the Union County Board of Commissioners, and I will accept nominations at this time. Do I have any nominations?
Please, sir.
Commissioner Helms.
I think Commissioner Simpson did an excellent job of identifying the requirements for officers of this board. I'd like to nominate David Williams for Vice Chair. He's come on board in a very short term, has demonstrated his effectiveness and his desire to take care of the county. So I'm privileged to nominate David Williams.
Thank you.
We have Commissioner David Williams nominated for Vice Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. Do we have any other nominations for Vice Chair? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of David Williams as Vice Chair for the Union County Board of Commissioners, please vote by raising of your right hand. We have 5 for affirmative for Commissioner David Williams as Vice Chair. Congratulations, Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, the clerk will administer the oath of office. So, Chairman Rape, if you would please come down front and be administered the oath of office by our clerk, Lynn West.
not inconsistent therewith, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as Chair of the Board of Commissioners for the County of Union, so help you God.
I do.
Do you, Dennis Rape, solemnly and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina, and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God.
I do.
Do you, Dennis Rape, swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office of Chair of the Board of Commissioners for the County of Union, according to the best of your skill and ability, according to law, so help you God?
I do.
Vice Chairman Williams, if you would please come and have the oath of office administered by Clerk Lynn West.
On the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you, David H. Williams, solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as Vice Chair of the Board of Commissioners for the County of Union, so help you God?
I do.
You, David H. Williams, solemnly and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God.
I do.
You, David H. Williams, swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office of Vice Chair of the Board of Commissioners for the County of Union, according to the best of your skill and ability, according to law, so help you God.
I do.
Excellent. Sign this one, both of them.
Let's congratulate both of these gentlemen on their new roles. And again, Commissioner Helms, thank you for your service to Union County and the role of chairman this past year. It's been a pleasure serving with you. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn the board meeting back over to you, and the next item for consideration by the board is the approval of elected officials' bonds.
Okay, this is a routine matter that needs to be taken care of each year at this time. Is there a motion to approve the bond amounts for the sheriff of $5,000 and the register of deeds for $25,000?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Another routine matter, can I have a motion to approve bond amounts for the Finance Services Administrator of $100,000 and Tax Administrator of $60,000?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Tonight, we have a couple of special recognitions and awards for staff in Union County Water, and I will recognize Andy Neff to provide more information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of County Commissioners, Manager Watson. It's always a pleasure to recognize our people and the good work they do. And tonight we have the opportunity to do that for a number of them. The first recognition goes to our Operations Challenge team. And then we also have recognitions for the men and women's hydrant hysteria team, where they put together a fire hydrant under tight time constraints. Every year, the North Carolina American Water Works Water Environment Association holds a conference in some North Carolina location in which professionals get together in the industry and they discuss new topics, different ways of doing business, lessons learned. And as part of this, there's a series of competitions that take place at the conference. And our teams typically compete, and they typically do very well. This year, our Operations Challenge team again won first place in Operations Challenge. The Operations Challenge consists of a number of events that test one's ability to deal with certain particular utility-related type problems. The first problem is repairing an 8-inch plastic wastewater line by inserting an inserted T and then affecting the repair and then testing the water afterwards through automation to make sure that they understood the parameters of the wastewater that were involved. That was the first test, again, timed. Second test was a maintenance simulation where they have a pump failure. They have a duplex lift station, which is 2 pumps. One of them fails. They're called to the scene. They have to determine what caused the pump to fail. So they have to do their lockout, tagout procedures, lift the pump up, get the pump on a table, tear it down, figure out what was wrong with it, put it back together, bring it back in the lift station, put it back in place, remove the lockout, tagout, turn it back on, and then they do some automated testing of it to make sure that the controls work for this particular pump moving forward. There's also a laboratory event. In this particular laboratory event, they test for a number of parameters in water, pH, alkalinity. They look at ammonia, and they perform calculations to determine the alkalinity of the water so that they can determine the amount of stability that that particular water sample has. Alkalinity is a measurement of stability of water. They also then have to solve a complex process control problem at a wastewater plant. So they're given this problem, they have to sequester themselves in a room, they have to go through a math exercise, they're given certain parameters, and they have to determine what the problem is and what the effective solution is. And the last problem they have to solve is a safety event where a person has succumbed to fumes in a confined space. They have to go through all their confined space procedures. They set up a tripod. They send in 2 men down into the confined space. They have to rescue the person that's in there. They have to, put a strap on them, get them out of the confined space, and then render first aid. And then they have to go back down and they have to finish the job that this person was originally intending to do. So all of this is timed competitively, and if they make mistakes, time's added. So this again is a time where our people again won first place. And that team consisted of Jonathan Jordan, Hayden Hunter, Brett Fisher, Dylan Hall, and then Matt Hargett was their coach. And unfortunately, Jonathan and Mr. Hunley could not, Mr. Hunter could not be here tonight, but I'd like to have Matt, Dylan, and Brett come forward so that you can observe them and get a good look at them, because these folks represented the utility very well and represent our overall employees very well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Dylan, Brett, thank you, Matt. Thanks. Stand by. So we have next the Hydrant Hysteria events, and there were 2 teams. It was a men's team and a women's team. This is a very good experience for us because our women's team finished first of all the utilities. That team consists of Beth Belk and Michelle McCarver, and Justin Hunley is their coach. And if I could ask them to come up, please. In this event, Hydrant Hysteria is where all you have is the 90-degree elbow coming up. And what the team has to do, there's all the components of a fire hydrant. So there's the barrel, the stem, the operating stem, all the nuts and bolts that go with it to put it all together. And what they have to do, they set up, and they're given a time hack, and they go, and these women set up the barrel, and they have to work around each other, putting all the nuts in to get their time down, so that they're not hitting each other as they're trying to work on the hydrant. These women put this hydrant together in 1 minute and 46 seconds. That's pretty amazing. The men's team consisted of Jimmy Gillen, Justin Hunley, and Jordan Helms. Unfortunately, Jimmy and Jordan could not be with us tonight, so, but Justin's here to accept the award for the men's team, and they finished second place in the overall competition. So Union County Water did extremely well in the competition. These employees demonstrate tremendous dedication and commitment to their work and to improve their skill levels. And I really think that they represent all of our employees exceptionally well. I'll give you another point. Beth Belk is not really part of Union County Water, formerly Union County Public Works. Beth now works in CCOM, but she's a former Public Works employee, and we kind of take her in as one of our team in these types of events, and I think she certainly enjoys doing it. So I'd just like to congratulate all these folks for their good work and their competitive spirit and their demonstration of skill in what they do every day. Thank you. And I think we'll maybe take a couple pictures, Mr. Chairman. That's okay. No, you can take that. Why don't you guys go ahead?
Very cool, right?
We'll just do the teams. We'll do the teams one at a time.
There you go. And 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
We're good?
What was the other?
That, we're good. I think we're good. Yeah. Just one word in closing. I'd be remiss if I didn't also recognize a few of our folks that helped set up the events at the conference. We had John Smith, who managed the entire hydrant hysteria competition for the American Water Works Association in North Carolina. And then we also have present Mike Farrar and Paul Woods, who also helped administrate some of the events at the conference. So Mike and Paul, would you just like to step up for a sec? They didn't know that I was going to say anything about them, so they're kind of holding back. But anyways, I wanted to recognize these gentlemen as well for their good work in the industry in advancing utility issues. So again, thank you very much.
Andy, I believe you got Greg Morgan to go.
So we also have another recognition this evening, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Corey Basinger from North Carolina DEQ. And he is going to present the Long Award to Greg Morgan. So I don't want to steal his thunder too much, but if you'd like to come up and address the board. And Mr. Basinger is in charge of the wastewater section in the Mooresville Regional Office. So he does all of our permitting. So he's a good guy to keep on your side.
Can we talk before you leave this evening?
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy. Mr. Commissioner, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager, it's a privilege for me to be here with you this evening. I'm most appreciative of the invitation. One of the great privileges entrusted to me as the chairman of the Water Pollution Control System Operator Certification Commission is to annually award the Operator of the Year Award, formerly known as the Wilbur Long Award, to a deserving wastewater professional across our great state. This year we received right many nominations, and one nomination rose above all the rest, and that was the nomination of Mr. Greg Morgan. All the commission members, all 11 of us, reviewed that information. I have the great privilege of knowing Greg's work personally through our interactions through the regional office, but the other 10 professionals that are on the commission do not know him as well as I do, but through his nomination, got to know him a little bit better. And his work in the industry is both exemplary and appreciated. Not only, I'm sure, here in Union County, but across the many activities that he's involved in professionally. Some of the criteria I'd like to read briefly, if you'll allow me a moment here to get my notes. The criteria for the Wilbur Long Award, the eligibility criteria, is rather lofty, and rightly so. It has 3 main criteria. The first is that it has exhibited outstanding knowledge and innovation in the continuing operation of a water pollution control system. The individual has contributed his time and efforts, his or her time and efforts toward the training, education, and professionalism of water pollution control systems. And thirdly, has devised, discovered, or invented devices or techniques which enhance the industry. And without question, through the nomination of Mr. Morgan, he has met all 3 of those criteria. It is an honor and privilege for me now to present the 2021 Wilbur E. Long Award to Greg Morgan. Just a couple of more quick things, if you'll allow me, is Andy and I got together and mostly Andy, put together some information, but all of this information was provided to us at the commission level in his nomination. So I'd like to just read into the record quickly some of this information. In 2021, Greg Morgan, the Union County Waterfield Services Superintendent, earned the Wilbur Long Award and is being recognized for this achievement by the commission. Over the past year, Mr. Morgan led the effort in Union County Water to significantly reduce sanitary sewer overflows from previous years. Overflows reduced from 43 in fiscal year 20 to 23 in fiscal year 21. These efforts involved installing a temporary pipeline to overcome a hydraulic restriction in the wastewater collection system, working to maximize the flow into the equalization basin at the Crooked Creek Water Treatment Facility, and identifying and developing the strategy to repair defects in a 42-inch sewer to reduce I&I. These efforts involve coordinating and support from many people within the organization, which Mr. Morgan regularly gets credit. He continues to advocate for operators through training and development throughout the state. Greg was awarded the Casey Monroe Outstanding Service Award in 2016 and also awarded the Golden Manhole in 2020 in recognition for his exceptional service to the utility industry. He's taught many classes throughout the state during his 20 years in the industry and is actively engaged with the North Carolina American Water Works Association, Water Environment Association. As treasurer of the Board of Trustees, he is also chair for Operations Challenge Committee and is an appointed member of the Water Environment Federation Operations Challenge Committee. Again, on behalf of the entire Water Pollution Control System Operator Certification Commission, on behalf of Cabinet Secretary Beiser, and on behalf of Governor Cooper, we are thrilled to recognize Greg Morgan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we move on to informal comments, I do want to say I hope to get to know all of you guys and gals that were awarded up here tonight. I want to say one thing about Greg. I got to know him when his grandfather was alive, and I got to know his father. And I got to tell this quick story. I stopped to see his grandfather a lot because he was real far along in age, but so wise. And I went in there one morning, he had a big bowl of Cheerios and half a gallon of ice cream on it. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, don't you put milk and sugar on your breakfast cereal?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "My milk and sugar just froze." So, and then I saw the wit in him, the wit in Mike, Greg's daddy, and I say the same thing. And I will tell you, when we're having committee meetings or two-on-ones, we hear all of you sewer guys' names and the job you're doing. So thank you very much for what you're all doing. Thank you. It's time for informal comments, and I believe we have one person signed up to speak, and I need to read. It's Mr. Levine. Just a minute. I have it. Okay, let me read this. Is Mr. Levine here?
I do not see him, sir.
Well, I will ask, is Mr. Levine here to speak to the board? Then I would assume that we will move on without me reading this precursor announcement. Okay. Tonight we have another employee recognition this evening for our fall Caught in the Act recipient. I'll ask Manager Watson to provide the details on this recognition.
And I'll pass the baton to Assistant County Manager Patrick Nyland. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. We are fortunate in Union County to have one of the best fire marshals in the state of North Carolina, and tonight it's my honor to recognize one of the employees of that department for being nominated for the Caught in the Act Fall Award. Beth Belk, who I just learned builds fire hydrants in her spare time, also is an administrative support specialist with the fire marshal's office. She does a lot of volunteering work with some of the local nonprofits. Two of those nonprofits are the Burn Children's Fund and Safe Kids Alliance. Recently, she was nominated for her efforts in connecting individuals in social services with resources. There were 2 kids that were burned in a fire and flown to Baptist Hospital. She was able to find them resources to help the family deal with that tragedy and deal with some of the financial expense of those treatments. She was also able to provide gun locks to social services to deliver to families when they are out on calls to make sure that individuals that own firearms have those firearms secured from children in the house. In all seriousness, as you did hear earlier, she does work with other departments. Beth epitomizes organizational commitment. She is not afraid to help anybody at any time, and it is my privilege to congratulate her and recognize her for the Fall 2021 Caught in the Act Award. So Beth and Kevin, if you don't mind coming up, Beth, congratulations.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Got it.
Okay, now we move on to consent agenda, and prior to consideration of the consent agenda, there's been a request to add an item to the agenda. I move to add the joint resolution in support of ending contract tracing and quarantine requirements of North Carolina public school students to the end of the business portion of the agenda after item 21-514. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
Can we also move item 21-489 to the regular agenda, short line water extension project?
Yes, sir. 21-489.
489.
Okay, and the revision on the, also on the consent agenda, we need to revise the title of an item, which is 21-458. We're going to change it to authorized conveyance, it says authorized conveyance of surplus property, and the revision is to authorize the county manager to convey surplus incinerator to Cabarrus County. Any other discussion? Have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended? So got a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, which I think we just did, but let's do it again. Just, do I have a motion?
Approve as amended.
Approve as amended. Do I have, okay. I have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we want to recognize Sheriff Kathy in the audience? I believe your item was just approved on consent. Okay. We have information only. Does anybody have any of these items that you would like to discuss, if necessary? We have 21,496, October 2021 UCPS monthly report. We have 21,442, Tax Collectors Department report for October. 21,455, Human Resources report for October 2021. Okay, we move on to business. Union County Agricultural and Event Complex licensing policy. And I'd like to recognize Andrew Balcom, because Cooperative Extension Chairman, to provide information on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on your new appointment, as well as Mr. Williams. All right. All right, good evening, everyone. Manager Watson as well. I'd like to talk with you guys this evening about the current and proposed licensing policy for the Union County Agricultural Center and the Special Event Center at Jesse Helms Park. The things that I'd like to present for you this evening are our proposed changes that have been discussed with staff, with the management team here with the county, as well as the Union County legal team. And so the three items that I want to cover this evening are the identification of the spaces that we have, the complex rate changes that we'd like to propose, and lastly, alcohol services. So just a little bit of background on the ID for the space. Our goal here is to unify the two facilities that we have on our property as the Union County Agricultural and Event Complex. These are simply definitions that were in our licensing policy that we would like to change for ease and familiarity for staff, as well as residents and interested parties that want to use our facilities. So the event complex would constitute the Ag and Conference Center, as well as the Special Event Center at Jesse Helms Park. For definition, the Conference Center will equal Union County Agriculture and Conference Center and SEC as the Special Event Center at Jesse Helms Park. And then subsequently, the complex, all indoor and outdoor locations for both of these facilities. Again, we want to make these changes because right now we have a agricultural center and a special event center. A lot of folks call the Ag Center the Event Center, and so it's confusing for our residents. It's confusing and challenging for staff as well. The rate changes that we would like to propose for our complex, we would like to make an addition as of a 10% discount for members of our Union County Chamber of Commerce. We would also like to make a 10% discount for any and all client that uses our facilities and our complex more than 4 times. So after the 4th event, they would then subsequently receive that 10% discount. We've recently come into discussions with several clients who are interested in using our facilities once a month, once a quarter, and we like to keep that repeat business, and this is a way to incentivize our facility for their usage. The last rate change that we would like to propose to the board this evening is the creation of a wedding and or wedding reception package. Currently, our facility does not have any language in the licensing policy to reflect wedding type events. It's simply a per hour rate, whether it's a weekday or a weekend event. Our staff has comprised multiple comps in the county as well as the southeast region of our state. Currently, we are charging roughly $165 an hour to comparable venues that are charging above $350 an hour. So our proposal here is a three-day weekend package. It's $10,000 flat fee. 2-day weekend package is $7,500 flat fee. In addition, we'd like to set limitations on the attendees for these events. Now, we are obviously permitted by the fire marshal. However, due to space, the requirements for table setup, for gift tables, for food, all of these auxiliary things that these events require, we have a lot of interested parties that want to use the fire marshal code as their cutoff for attendance. However, it's unsafe due to the additional pieces that are required for these events. I would like to note that our facility for weddings also, which other venues do not, also adds in tables, chairs, linens, etc. All of these things, if you've recently had a wedding or looked into a wedding, are charged by the piece. So these are all things that we include currently in our usage of our venue and would include in this package. Now, many of you may think, why would we have a 3-day wedding or a 2-day wedding? We additionally have, it's not just the event that occurs. It's not just the 6 or 8 hour block of time that the wedding or reception happens. It's the florist coming in to take a look. It's the decorator coming in. It's the caterer needing to get in 3 hours early. It's the pipe and drape. There's a lot of different activities that occur leading up to these events that we're currently not charging for. And we're not getting the best usage of our staff's time. These people tend to pop in unannounced or without appointments, and then the nature of our facility, we're glad to assist them, but it does take away from staff's time for doing their other work. We also, we also host several culturally diverse weddings annually. Many of those weddings are multi-day events. That is another reason for the multiple day packages. So our idea here is you have one day that's dedicated to the wedding, and then the additional days are actually available hours of use. So they can be used in multiple blocks or multiple days leading up to the wedding, as well as the tear down and the cleanup post. So that is our idea here with our rate changes, and I wanted to really detail the wedding reception package, because that is, when you look at it on your screen, kind of a sticker shock. So it's important that we describe what all goes into that. And so the last thing that I would like to talk about this evening are alcohol services. Currently, the Union County policy does not necessarily align as cohesively with the North Carolina ABC Commission. And one of the things that we are striving to do is to become a little more in line with that commission. Now, we want to maintain the safety and security foremost for our residents and for our patrons that use our facility. And I wanted to detail a few of the items that we're looking to make changes to. And so first off, I just want to make sure that we all are understanding what is required to serve alcohol at the complex. First off, all caterers and all licensees, and licensee is the person that is using the facility, the person that's name is on the contract to host an event. Both of these parties must have the following items on your screen. The license agreement, that is a Union County document that is created through our legal team. To serve alcohol, you must also have an alcohol addendum. So the license agreement is for anyone who rents our facility. The alcohol addendum is for anyone who wants to serve alcohol at an activity. The alcohol addendum is a one-time fee or one-time contract for caterers, as long as they continue to use our facility and maintain their proper standing with North Carolina State statute, as well as the ABC Commission. The same piece for the master catering agreement. That is a one-time for caterers, but every time a host or a licensee wants to use our facility, they must fill that out. Also, we'd like to make a change that all events that have alcohol are considered high risk and will require security to be at that event, no matter the amount of people who are attending. Currently, a caterer that is able to serve alcohol at our facility is required to hold a $3 million alcohol liability policy. And that is a state law as well as a piece with the NCABC Commission, and also is something that the additional amount is something that we have discussed and are in agreement with Union County Risk Management. And then lastly, the caterer is required to have a current mixed beverage permit in North Carolina to serve liquor. And this is through the NCABC Commission as well. So to have alcohol at any of our events, the caterer and the licensee must comply with all of these pieces. Lastly, I'd like to mention a few additional items for requirements for serving alcohol at the complex. The North Carolina ABC Commission requires a limited special occasion permit to be obtained by the licensee. This is for all parties with the exception of nonprofit. So we're talking wedding receptions, we're talking holiday parties, and this is for anyone who wants to serve liquor. It is not required and does not apply to beer and wine. Under this permit, the licensee or the person hosting the event is not allowed to sell alcohol under any circumstances. The second item, which is a separate piece, is the special occasion nonprofit permit, and that is also obtained by the licensee. And this applies specifically to a registered nonprofit organization, and this is required if they want to serve any type of alcohol at our facility, with beer, wine, malt liquor, regular liquor, all of the alcohol. With this nonprofit permit, the ABC Commission does allow the sale of alcohol at a ticketed event strictly for fundraising purposes. And so I wanted to make that very clear just so we're all on the same page and all speaking the same language. I would like to bring up the fact that the reason we're having this conversation this evening is because the NCABC Commission is a very challenging organization. Their paperwork is very complex, and it's extremely challenging for individuals and parties that want to use our facility to navigate those waters. It's very challenging for our staff to navigate these waters. So putting these permits and these restrictions in line with our county legal team and making this more fluid and more streamlined is the goal of our staff to provide this for our residents and for folks that are interested in using our facility. So with that, I will be happy to take any questions at this time. I am also happy to provide the entire proposed licensing policy to you guys for your review. If you would be so interested, if we would like to have a conversation about that after this meeting or at the next meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. But what I wanted to bring to you this evening were our proposed changes and alignment. Thank you for your time.
Any questions? Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you. What was the names again for the, what's what?
The names for the permits?
No, the names for the buildings.
The names for the buildings, yes, sir. So currently we have the Agricultural and Conference Center and we have the Special Event Center at Jesse Helms Park. Our goal for the time being is to rename the complex the Union County Agricultural and Event Complex.
Okay. And this is going through the Agriculture Committee?
Yes.
They're the ones discussing this and coming up. Was there any thought to any other types of names just to make it less confusing?
The Union County Ag Advisory Board is aware and is approving of the entire presentation that we've discussed tonight. The goal is definitely to make the names more user-friendly. I think that the decision made by the advisory board and by staff was try to make this as simplified as possible. And we didn't go into a lot of thought of a special name or significance naming rights, if you wanted to call that, due to the complexities that could potentially create. And so we settled on agriculture and event complex because we thought it was straightforward.
You know, one thing I think about when looking at this, or just hearing that, because even those names, Special Events Center, you know, we have one that's an Agriculture and Conference Center.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. But then I look at the Special Events Center, and I almost think we're missing an opportunity here of doing a real honor to someone or a group of people. For example, now Commissioner Simpson is not going to, I've not spoken to him or anybody else about this. This is just me thinking off the top of my head. You know, nobody has done more in this county to facilitate that arena from happening than Jerry Simpson. So, you know, I think if I made the motion, I'd get 4 votes, with Jerry being the only one that would abstain from it to name it after him. Also, if Jerry Simpson didn't want it named after him, I think that maybe like the Farm Family Arena, named for all the farm families in Union County, would be a good fitting name, and would really, that Farm Family Arena would really separate it from the Agriculture and Conference Center. I think that maybe that would help some, because it is confusing to people when you say there's an event and it's at the Ag Center, you know, which one, where at, and you know, just giving it a clear name. Will you be having another meeting of that committee before our next meeting?
Yes, our next Ag Advisory Board meeting is in January. Yes.
Will it be before our meeting or after?
I'm not sure what the date falls on. Our meetings are the first Thursday of the month.
Right. And again, Jerry, I apologize for that. I just came to my mind when it's absolutely nothing. But Jerry Simpson has worked for years and years and years to get something like this to happen. And I think that would be a great honor to him in his role as an agriculture extension agent and a county commissioner in doing that. So, Jerry, I hope you take that for what it is. It's very compliment. Is not meant to be a slight or anything else to you. It's, you know, so maybe that they think about naming it an arena after, you know, either somebody. Yeah, and again, you're going to have families fighting over it if you're going to name it after a family.
Right.
But if you were to name it after all farm families, you know, something to consider. It's still complicated. Looking at it like this, a Special Event Center is still complicated.
I would agree completely that Special Event Center is complicated, and I think that there are some challenges with Farm Family Arena or anything that's agricultural specific, because the beauty of the Special Event Center at Jesse Helms Park is it is a collaboration project with Parks and Recreation as well. Mm-hmm. And so to blend something together is certainly something that I'm happy to take back to the Ag Advisory Board and then subsequently the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with the Parks and Rec Director. Be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Rushing, we discussed this at length there on the Ag Advisory Board. One of the members on the Ag Advisory Board is Alex Simpson of Simpson Eggs, and one of the other board members suggested to Alex that he give us $50,000 for naming rights, and that he'd get the name, but I'd get all the credit. So we're working on that. But yeah, it has been discussed and vetted, and we'll certainly take your suggestion back to the group and let them ponder on that. I guess is the rule of a nonprofit being allowed to sell alcohol a change in our policy? Because in my experience with Dancing in the Clover, the only way we could have alcohol was to give it away.
The current policy for alcohol for a nonprofit is that we don't allow any selling of alcohol at the facility. Now, the way that nonprofits are able to have alcohol is by having tickets available, like a drink ticket for usage, but that is not a purchase for alcohol. No, that is part of the package for attendance.
So for clarification, the meaning of tickets is a drink ticket, not the ticket for the fundraising event.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
And I noticed we have recently installed a very nice fence around our outdoor patio.
Yes, sir.
I know in the past you were not allowed to take drinks outside. Is that now an area of the conference center that allows us the use of alcohol, the patio outside?
That is one of the proposed changes that we would like to make, is to be able to serve alcohol on the patio that is right off of the event center area. And the reason that we formerly were not able to serve alcohol there is because it wasn't enclosed. Working with the sheriff's office and the legal team, having the fence around that designates that an enclosure and would allow us to have alcohol in that space, which our staff does feel would add to the rentability of that space.
Fence looks nice. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Never would I have thought that an ag extension director would need to be a licensed minister to perform weddings and a para-lawyer to interpret all this stuff. You did very well.
I joke with Assistant Manager Patrick Nolan, I used to be a really good agronomist, but I think those days are waning. So.
Chairman, may I ask a
Yes, sir.
question, please?
Commissioner Hayden.
Andrew, I know we've had this conversation, and I like for the record to, the alcohol situation has been abused grossly in the past.
Yes, sir.
A licensed alcohol person, the alcohol has to be purchased at a identified state ABC store that's associated with their license.
In North Carolina?
And you cannot bring alcohol in from South Carolina.
No, sir.
And it is in your policy.
That's correct.
Okay. That was a concern, so.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Russell.
Mr. Chairman Rape, I know you like a funny Union County story, so I'll give you one. Ron Cox, who used to be at the Ag Center, this was prior to alcohol being allowed there, when we didn't have any alcohol there. One day they had a party, and I apologize for butchering it, something, the 15-year-old birthday party for
Quinceañera.
Hispanic food. Yeah, there you go. And some of the gentlemen were bringing in a cooler full of beer to the Ag Center. And Ron called them outside. He said, oh no, alcohol's free here, alcohol free. And they said, gracias. So they have to have the license, and you have to give it away if it's at a certain event. Is that what I'm understanding?
With the exception of the ticketing, you can
Okay.
sell.
For a private event, no alcohol can be sold.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, and Jerry, you're still on the Ag Committee. This will be going back to you, right?
I think that's right, Andrew. We will discuss
Yes, sir.
some of the issues raised.
So we can act on it in the second meeting in January instead of the first.
Well, I'm happy to take this back to the advisory board with your request for some more intentional thought and consideration into the naming of the facilities. Would you like me to bring everything back together, the naming as well as the rate changes and the alcohol, or is that a singular interest?
Everything's fine, I think. So, like I said, just the name, maybe
Okay.
talk about it. And
Okay,
if we could leave that open to,
sure.
something with arena, even if it's Union County Parks and Rec, arena's an arena, or I just, some kind of distinction there, because it's still confusing.
Would be happy to take a look at that, and I could bring some naming back to the board at your second meeting. Would it be appropriate to request the rate changes and the alcohol services to be looked at your first meeting? And the reason I ask that is we have several large events that are really they're waiting for their time availability to book, and a lot of these challenges and issues we're discussing will impact those.
That would be fine, Patrick. That's under your umbrella, isn't it? So you're going to bring the rate charges back January, the first meeting, and then the naming. This is a lot to absorb.
It's a lot. Yes, it is. The policy is a lot.
If I can make a suggestion, maybe that we bring the policy change and the rate changes back for you all to approve. The name is pretty easy to change at any point we want. So if we want to put a little bit of thought into it, maybe get a little bit of community input, it might take a little bit longer to do that, but it's probably going to reap a little bit more reward if we involve the community in some of that naming, similar to what the city of Monroe did on the theater, where they got ideas from the public and from some of the stakeholder groups that are going to be using it. So if the board's okay with that, we'll probably bring the policy back with the name and the rate and the criteria as is, and then we can review the naming of the various facilities as we move forward, if that's okay.
Is that okay with all the commissioners?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
My question is, my understanding is that Parks and Rec and Ag work together on this. So I'd like to hear from both of you. I want to hear from both committees on this as we make our decisions. So.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And I would like to say that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee has reviewed the proposed policy, and they are also in favor
Oh, that's good
of
to
the
know.
policy.
Well, the other question, one other quick question, the number of attendees limitations, the Ag, what is the current Ag Center and the Special Event Center? Do these numbers apply to each of them? Because the Special Event Center is a
No.
little more limited in space.
No, sir. These numbers apply to the Agricultural Conference Center.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Andrew, another question. I didn't understand the 450 for wedding or reception and the 300 for wedding or reception. What's the differentiation there?
Sure. So the 450 for one or the other, and so it requires less setup and less space for the setup. If you're having a wedding and a reception, typically we will put the wedding in one hall, and then the reception has to have a wall put up in place, and the reception is in the subsequent two available spaces. So you actually have less space for both due to the setup constraints.
But is there a rate difference between 450 and 300?
We don't charge per person, no, sir.
Well, it seems like to me, if you can afford the food, you might as well go for 450 then.
Well, if that's the interest of the parties, so.
Well, thank y'all for the work time you put into this, and Patrick, you're gonna bring it back to us when it's ready then, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Okay, on the Union EMS contract overview, gonna recognize Assistant County Manager Patrick Nyland to provide information on this item.
Thank you, Chairman. The goal of this presentation is to give the board a very high-level overview of our relationship with Atrium as it relates to Union EMS. So I want to give you a little bit of historical context of how this all started, some of what's in the contract, some of the metrics they use that we have put in the contract, and some of the challenges facing both the county and Union EMS moving forward. So Union EMS was established on July 1, 1985 to provide emergency medical care for the citizens of Union County. It was started by Union County. It was operated as a county department up until 1997. In 1997, negotiations between the county and Carolina Healthcare System at the time led to the creation of what we now know of as Union EMS. It is where the county provides the funding, and Union EMS through Atrium provides the operation of emergency medical services. The current contract, it's an extension. There have been various versions of this contract over the years, but the most recent one was approved July 1, 2020, and that extension expires June 30th of 2023. It is the county's responsibility in the contract to provide funding for both capital and operations, and it is Atrium's responsibility to provide EMS operations, billing, and collection. Atrium derives its funding from two main sources. One is county tax dollars through what we give them every year, and the other is through direct billing. They go after collections through North Carolina Debt Set-Off. They also bill directly to health insurance, Medicaid, and Medicare. Generally, personnel in union EMS fall into two categories. Either they're paramedics or emergency medical technicians. Paramedics are a higher level of medical provider. Union EMS consists of both. Typically, in a normal operating situation, they will have one paramedic and one EMT on every ambulance. Calls for service generally fall into two categories, either an ALS level or a BLS level, advanced life support or basic life support. For advanced life support level calls, a paramedic is required. These are some of your cardiac arrests, tracheotomies, airway clearing, that sort of thing. So it's a higher level of medical procedure, and that's why it requires a higher level of medical personnel on those calls. The current deployment model in the contract calls for 14 ambulances from 10 a.m. to 9:59 p.m. and 11 from 10 p.m. to 9:59 a.m. As part of the contract, what we measure as far as response time is for Priority 1 or Code 3 calls. These are your most severe calls. These are the ones that you need to get to people in a hurry. It's a life or death situation. So this is typically what people refer to as lights and sirens on responding to a call. These definitions and times will make more sense on the next slide when I show you the map, but we have 4 metrics that we measure. We have the core, the inner, the outer, and the overall county response time. And all these response times are measured at the 90th percentile. So as long as 90% of those calls fall in that range, they are meeting the obligation of the contract. This is the county zone. You can see the blue in the middle is the core. That is where most of the calls happen. Then you get into the inner, outer, and then the county-wide is just a combination of all 4. And you can see the times. County-wide, we strive for a 12-minute and 59-second response time. Core is 11 minutes and 59 seconds. The inner is 13 minutes and 29 seconds, and the outer is 15 minutes and 59 seconds. Shoot times are under 60 seconds. Turnaround times are a little bit tricky because a lot of that depends on what's happening at the hospital. What we have seen throughout COVID is the hospitals have been somewhat overrun, and turnaround times have suffered because of that. So ambulances are spending more time at the hospital before they can unload their patients. This is an example of what Union EMS sends us every month. So this is how we measure if they are meeting the response times in the contract. It's a fairly easy to read dial that if you're in the green or yellow, you are meeting the obligation of the contract, and if you are in the red, you are not. For this particular month of June of this year, you can see that on certain areas they are meeting the response time, and in certain areas they aren't. When they aren't meeting certain response times, what they will do is provide a plan on how they are going to get those call times down. This is the grid, also accompanied with the monthly report. And what this shows is the number of calls in each grid and the average time it took them to get there. Some of these grids don't have any data because they didn't have any calls. So we get this every month. So we know where the calls are happening and how long it's taking them to get that on a pretty small scale. We're able to drill down pretty finite on the area. Challenges. Yes, sir.
So that the number at the top is the response time?
The average response time, and then the number on the bottom would be the number of calls in that zone.
So some of these areas, I mean, I see 21.9 minutes to get a response there in New Salem.
Yes, sir.
Okay, back before we started all this moving everybody around, I mean, I think there was a dedicated ambulance at that fire station. You know, I don't know what the response times back then, but I'd be curious to see if we're moving things away from parts of our county into other parts of the county where, you know, again, we need the response time. Yeah, Commissioner Helms remembers a lot of this, and I'm sure Commissioner Simpson remembers a lot of this. I mean, this just doesn't seem like what we were sold.
And at the end of this presentation, we're going to talk about kind of the next steps of what we want to do as a board and as a county and EMS. And some of that, I think if we can just get to the end of the slide, we can talk about. And there are some recommendations from staff at this point that I'll get to after the next couple of slides. So the challenges facing Union EMS, staffing obviously has been a challenge for them. They have been short on both paramedics and EMTs for about 2 years now. It's somewhat of a national trend. There are agencies in North Carolina that do better than others, but nationally there is a shortage of both paramedic and EMTs. It is a very high standard to meet to be a paramedic, and a lot of folks that are going into that field ultimately go into hospitals because they can make more money. So they'll go get the training to be a paramedic and end up in an emergency room as a nurse or something of that nature. So it's a challenge for EMS across the country. The staffing shortages have led to fewer ambulances being on the road. We have seen this in response times. With fewer people comes fewer trucks. With fewer trucks comes longer response times. Reliance on outside agencies. It is not uncommon for counties or cities to call on outside agencies to help with response times. What we have seen over the last couple of years is more of a reliance on Cabarrus, Medic, Anson, some of the South Carolina units, to where they don't always come into the county, but a lot of times they'll be called to be put on standby on the county line. And a lot of this has to do with both COVID and staffing shortages. It's not just exposures for staff. You know, if a paramedic's kid gets sick and they have to stay home, that's an employee that they can't put on the truck. The good news is they have seen COVID have less of an impact on their vacancy rate right now. So they are having more people in the office than they have in a long time, but they are still dealing with some of the staffing shortages. I mentioned turnaround time at the hospital. It is not quick right now to get a truck in, get a patient offloaded, and get them out. And a lot of that is due to staffing shortages at the hospital and just overcrowding at the hospital. Again, as COVID numbers have come down, we have seen an improvement in that. Dynamic deployment is what Commissioner Rushing was talking about. And prior to dynamic deployment, we had static bases throughout the county where ambulances would post up. It could be at fire departments, it could be standalone bases. And the service delivery now is they are in their trucks for 12 hours and they move around. So if a truck gets a call, they will shift all the other trucks around to different locations to be in a better position to respond to the next call. It works. It seems to work better in a more urban area, so along the core, along 74, it seems to work okay. Where you get into some of the issues is when you get out into the rural areas where the historical data says there aren't going to be any calls, but you know every once in a while there will be a call, and how far away is that closest ambulance? One of the other problems they have with recruiting is they're not part of the North Carolina local government retirement system. Cabarrus County, for example, they can attract from a lot of different agencies throughout the state because they are. It's hard to get an individual that has 20 years of experience with the local government retirement system to leave that to come to a private provider like Atrium is. It's not impossible, but it's more difficult to try to draw those folks away from that retirement system.
Question there.
Yes, sir.
What in Cabarrus makes it different?
It is run by Cabarrus County, so it is a county department. They are part of the local government retirement system. And it's not just Cabarrus, Anson, Stanley. They all are municipal providers.
Okay.
So moving forward, one of the staffing issues is trying to create a pipeline of qualified individuals. One of the barriers of getting those qualified individuals is training. SPCC and Union EMS have worked together to develop a EMT academy. This would take a 6-month program down to 5.5 weeks, and you essentially pay these people to get trained, whereas in the past you rely on these people getting trained on their own and then you offer them a job after. So these folks would come on as Atrium employees, they'd be paid throughout their training, and at the end of that 5.5 weeks, they could go on an ambulance as a BLS personnel, a EMT. They're also working on a paramedic academy. It would shrink a 2-year program down to about a year. It's still a long time, but it would start to help to establish that pipeline of folks that could replace outgoing paramedics to try to address some of their staffing shortage. Brian Edwards recently announced his retirement, and as part of the search for the new director, Atrium has involved the county. They want community input, they want stakeholder input. So we will be heavily involved with that search to try to find who we feel is the best EMS director for Union County. And Stoney, this is kind of what I was getting to earlier, is we feel that we have about 18 months left on this current contract. So now is probably the time to develop a stakeholders group with the primary function being to review the current service level, decide if changes are needed to the deployment model, that'd be the dynamic deployment, and provide guidance on determining what the best path forward providing emergency medical services to the county is. We don't have a formal recommendation, which we will bring back to you in January, about forming the stakeholders group, but that's what we feel is probably the best avenue forward at this point. Wanted a chance to address the board, go over this information, and obviously get input from you all before we come back with that formal proposal for that stakeholders group.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
A couple of things. One, I'd like on your grid matrix with how many calls, and Stoney pointed out New Salem, those two. I'd like to see that broken down because we rely a lot on other agencies outside this county. And so I don't want to see what other agencies do for us. I want to see what our current agency is doing. I'd like to see that broken down because I know New Salem, I've heard from individuals out in New Salem that they're getting their support from Stanley.
Well, this graph is only
This is only
Union. This is
Union.
only Union EMS, yes,
And
sir.
it's still 21. Well,
Yes.
the problem, as you know, that 11 of 14 is not being followed. It's been 5 and 6 and 7. And, you know, when you talk about the deployment dynamic model will work if you've got ambulances. It struggles to work when you have less than half what you're supposed to have. So, you know, I'll be interested to see. And the other thing is the classes you were talking about for the paramedic, the BM, you know, and the basic life support. Is that going to be run by South Piedmont, operated by South Piedmont, or is that going to be run by the Atrium Group?
The model that is proposed right now would be to be run by South Piedmont.
Well, then we need to talk.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Commissioner Rushing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm looking at this again, just the same map that we're looking at on the screen. You know, that 21 minutes, and there's another 21 over here in Marvin area, looks like 21.3 or something like that. So that's the average time of 2 calls or the 5 calls.
For that month, yes, sir.
So there was 5, like, let's just use the one for simplicity, 2 calls in New Salem at 218 and 205 area, 21.9 minutes for 2 calls. So, and then look right below there at 7.8 minutes. So is one call 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and the other call is 10 minutes or 7 minutes, or?
So again, it depends on when obviously those calls didn't happen at the same time, so it probably was a day that they had more trucks on the road. To Chairman Helm's point, if you have more trucks, the dynamic deployment model works a little bit better because you don't have to move them as far. So I don't know specifically about those, but yes, that is what that's saying. The average of those 2 calls was 21.9 minutes, and that one call was a 7.8 minute response time.
Yeah, just like, you know, we hear the stories, and we had a close friend of our family that shared an ambulance from Cabarrus County to the hospital with another lady that was in a wreck with her, you know, all for efficiency, but we don't have the number of ambulances on the road that we were sold. And we don't have, I understand it's hard to get people. I understand that there's difficulties there. Are people being laid off because they've not got a vaccine? Are people being, are we shuttling people on these ambulances, these fewer ambulances that we have? Are we shuttling people on those with paramedics from one hospital to another? Or are we sending them on, that was one of the problems before, if you remember, Sam. We were wondering if we were transporting people. And are we still doing that? Are we transporting people, or are we just taking people from emergencies to the hospital?
Are you asking if they do like interfacility transports?
Right, yeah, are we helping them switch them from one unit to another?
They do that. It does not take priority over a level or a code 3 call. If there is a code 3 call, they will respond to that.
Well, they don't drop the guy off in the middle of the highway.
Not in the middle of the highway, no, sir. But
Right,
if they're on
and they
their
don't
way,
go straight to that guy that's having a stroke.
if they're on their way for a scheduled facility transport, they will forego that to respond to a call if they are the closest unit.
If they haven't already got the person in the
Correct.
ambulance.
Yes, sir.
Again, if we're what are we paying for? What do we pay for?
Well, and I think that's.
Union County taxpayers.
Union County taxpayers are paying for Atrium to run emergency medical service. I think.
How many
to-
ambulances on the road?
It changes on any given day.
No, I mean, what are we, we never got a contract that,
We pay for 1411.
and we get,
Again, it's on any given day. There have been situations where we're under status 5, which is less than 5 on the road.
so we have had less than 5, but we're paying for 14. So as a representative elected by the people of Union County and the taxpayers of Union County, I got to look them in the face and say, we're paying for 14, and we're only getting less than 5 sometimes.
And I think we've heard those same questions from the community, and that's why we feel that now is the time to look at our EMS service, to review what is in the contract, what is being provided, and figure out what the best for Union County is moving forward.
Commissioner Rushing, we either need to have some two-on-one conferences or have a work session on this out here, because I think there's a lot of stuff that I have maybe heard in the agenda meetings that I want to read you in on. These numbers are not acceptable, but the problem is getting people to work. And COVID, qualified people being out of work due to COVID isolation. I mean,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Rushing, please understand the information that's being brought to you tonight, is concerning when you look at these grids and the response times and whatnot, and you talk about the number of ambulances that are on the road that we are paying for, but maybe not on the road because we don't have the staffing and things like that. Those are of great concern. We have been in constant contact with Atrium over these issues, and we feel that, tonight was the appropriate time to bring this to the board, kind of like an orientation to the issue, and that we do agree with you and the rest of the board that there needs to be some improvements here. And it's how do we collectively make this work going forward. And Patrick is, as he said, in January, bringing back some additional information, some recommendations for how we do that. And I think that would be an excellent topic for a work session. But tonight was just to give you a taste of what we have been looking at and the things that we have been seeing and do have concerns over. And I will put the caveat in there. I do think that, and do believe, and do know that the individuals that are out there on the ambulances tonight and every night and every day with Union EMS are working absolutely as hard as they can to provide the kinds of service that they know are expected for our residents. But we do have some gaps that we need to fill, and we need to work together to get those gaps filled.
And Mr. Manager, I believe that 100%. I see them out there sitting in those trucks hour after hour after hour, sitting in those trucks with no relief, not even being able to go in and sit somewhere. And these are the things we talked about when this first started. They could go and maybe sit on a couch instead of sitting in that truck. They could go to the restrooms in a fire department. And I think we were renting space in some fire departments just so they could have them there. And where I see 21 minutes, that's where one of the ambulances was. And I wonder if we wouldn't have changed that if that wouldn't still be the case, is you'd have less response time up in that area. Everybody deserves a decent response time, and I understand there's distance, and it's a big county. But this, like I said, this is nothing what we're sold. So the contract that we agreed to many years ago, I'm thinking 6 years, Richard?
Close to it.
6 years?
Close to it.
This if the contract's not worth the paper it's written on with Atrium, or did we not do the contract right?
So the contract speaks to response times. That is what is a breachable part of the contract. The trucks on the road is not. It is a goal that they are supposed to work toward, but it is not a breachable part of that contract.
So we never made it in the contract that we wanted 14.
It is in there, but not as a breach.
It's
If they
just a
don't have that,
suggestion that we have that.
it's a goal that they meet that
Yeah.
deployment model.
And I would add, in our conversations with the administration of the hospital, they have been more than willing to sit down with us, and they have offered up that they want to help be part of the solution, because they do realize there are some shortcomings here. But they're more than willing to sit down with us and help work this out.
And I just would like to take the opportunity to echo something Mark said about the folks that are on the trucks. They have been working extra shifts. They've been working longer shifts. They have been asked to do a lot over the last few years, and by and large, they've stepped up. Now, a lot of these folks just can't, whether they have a quarantine order, or, they have sick kids at home, but the ones that are showing up have by and large done a fantastic job for us. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank those that are on the trucks.
We
Because of
certainly
COVID,
appreciate their service.
We keep hearing because of COVID. Are any of the CARES Act funding that we've already approved accepting, first of all, did Atrium get any CARES Act funding? And are they not giving it to the people that are on these ambulances because they're their employees, not our employees, correct?
They are Atrium's employees.
They're Atrium employees. So are they getting extra money through the
They
federal
did.
government?
The Atrium just went through a compensation review and had requested additional compensation for paramedics and EMTs.
From who?
So that's all been done within the last 6 months.
Let me jump in here. Commissioner Helms has been trying to get on.
My question, you said we got 18 months on the contract. What is the out?
We have to give a year's notice if we would like to get
So
out.
if we decide we need to do something different, we have to give them a year's notice.
Yes, sir.
And I will tell you something, you saw the dashboard where the needles got over in the red area as far as, that started happening about the time that the contract had just renewed. Isn't that right, Patrick? I mean, COVID hit right after the contract renewed, and then it just became an unfortunate chain of events.
There's about 6 to 8 months after the most recent
Renewal.
extension was adopted that COVID hit.
The numbers were better, and they've got a lot worse. So, Mr. Manager, I would suggest we do a workshop.
Yeah, I agree. It's, the timing's right, and this issue needs to be resolved.
Commissioner Simpson, I'm trying to read that look.
I was just curious, you made the comment about the other counties and the fact that they had the state insurance.
Retirement, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
retirement, and that's important. What about pay? Is it comparable from a county-paid position comparable to our type position?
From a pay standpoint, yes, Atrium is competitive with surrounding agencies.
Okay.
It's just the pension of the state system is hard to compare with or
Thank you.
compete with.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You're not through though yet, are you?
That was my last slide,
Okay.
just talking about moving forward, is trying to form that stakeholders group to review just current policies, deployment model, and look at what's best for the county moving forward.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay. The list of boards and committees with commissioner representatives appointed has been provided and discussed with board members. And I would like to say this too, me and David, in anticipation of maybe what happened tonight happening. If anybody needs, if we have to do any adjusting or moving around, I think everybody is agreeable to do it. Jerry, I did have to tell them about 3 times that you were gonna go with them to Catawba water meeting, because you said they had good fish and barbecue, and Richard said he don't never eat, so it must be really good.
There's just certain information doesn't need to be distributed, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, but you say so little, so,
I will say that's David, you're getting a great opportunity. That's a great committee down there, good folks. That's a great partnership that we have with Lancaster County. It really is.
I'm looking forward to serving on it.
At our groundbreaking for the lake, one of their members has been on since the very beginning, made the comment that Union County and Lancaster has not had a disagreement during the whole time. So it's been a great working relationship. We have conversation about what doing the right thing, did we, Jerry? So, but it's a great group to work with.
And I'll offer to come to the first meeting and introduce you and see what's on the menu there.
I'll share my catfish fillets with you.
okay. If there's no questions, can I get a motion to make the appointments as listed in the included list that I have furnished to you?
So moved.
Have a motion? Everybody in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, I'll ask County Manager Watson to provide the board with information regarding the request from the Village of Marvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One point related to the appointments, because I don't have that list in front of me. Did that include appointments of individuals to serve as liaison regarding this EMS contracting issue?
Service.
Were there any appointments to serve as, from the board to serve as liaison regarding this EMS contract?
I thought you had requested that,
Is that on the list is what I'm asking?
It doesn't appear to be now.
no.
I would respectfully ask that if we could reopen that and
Okay.
appoint two members of the commission as liaisons to that, to serve on the oversight or to serve as members of the board that work with us regarding that contract.
Okay. Commissioners, I had talked, and Richard had talked with County Manager Watson. I think staff had requested that Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Helms be appointed to that board. But if anybody has a burning desire, I guess we can talk about it. Are y'all okay with Commissioner Vice Chairman Williams and Commissioner Helms?
I'm not opposed to it, but being here when the contract was, in the infancy, I would like to consider either Commissioner Simpson or myself, just because we were here when we heard how it was sold to us originally. And no slight, and again.
No, I'm happy to defer. I mean, I've got the shortest tenure on the board here, and I agree. I think many of you could contribute invaluably based on the experience you've had in seeing this over time.
Would you like?
I would offer a recommendation of Commissioner Helms. He sort of lives over on that western side, maybe represents a little more urban / area, and Commissioner Rushing, the sort of the rural side. So I suggest those two.
Okay. We open it back up. I have a motion for Commissioner Helms and Rushing. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know, speaking for Patrick, he looks forward to working with Mr. Rushing and Mr. Helms on those issues as we go forward and being part of that planning for that workshop that we will have coming up on this topic. Moving on to this item number 514, the appointment of representatives to meet with the Village of Marvin to discuss transportation funding requests. The Village of Marvin has requested that Union County send representatives or have representatives meet with either the entire village council or representatives of the village council regarding transportation funding of the roundabout or a roundabout project that they have planned at the intersection of Newtown Road and Marvin Road. I believe that they have been working with NCDOT on that project for quite some time. And of course, we all know that funding for DOT projects has come slowly. They have, in the interim, they have expended, they made the choice to employ off-duty deputies to direct traffic through that intersection for several hours in the evening, and that has gone on for several years now. They're just looking for a solution there. They are asking Union County to help fund that project, or at least discuss help funding that project and listen to what their ask may be. This particular intersection was studied. Brian, you can, if I misstate anything, please let me know. But this particular intersection was studied as part of the critical intersection analysis and was brought to the board several years ago, but did not make the top 10 projects in the county. Am I correct with that, generally?
I'd say generally it scored very well, but they were moving forward with their own funding for that.
Okay, very good. So there's been a little bit of history with this, and time has passed, but they are wanting to enter into some conversation with the board on this. So it's really, they will meet with the board in a joint session if that's the board's pleasure, or if the board chooses to appoint some representative or representatives from this board to go and meet with representatives from the town and staff to discuss what the ask is, then they're amenable to that as well, but it's at your pleasure.
Okay, discussion on that. Commissioner Rushing?
I would suggest a joint meeting. That way there's no, like two commissioners could go and the other three disagree with what they come up with, and so it'd be probably better for us just all here at the same time with them and discuss it. We've got some funding, Bjorn, correct? I mean, we do some projects.
Yeah, can Bjorn come up to?
Yeah, come forward, Bjorn. And Vice Chairman Williams had told me last week, he's found some funding that may be available. You want to explain that real quick?
Well, just correct me if I'm wrong, Bjorn, but there may be some developer funds potentially that could be helpful here, and there also is some funding that we've committed through board action, but depending on action by NCDOT, that might be freed up. So could you maybe speak to that?
The board several months ago committed $75,000 to partner with Weddington for Forest Lawn and Potter on a application to CARTPO for a roundabout at that location, and we'll find out in about 6 weeks whether that's going to get funded or not. I'm pretty sure it's going to, but if it doesn't, that $75,000 comes back and you can allocate it to whatever you want. Also, we worked with Lancaster County. They have a large development just west of Waxhaw Marvin Road in the Panhandle, had a traffic impact analysis done, had to do some mitigation in North Carolina, decided to monetize that. So they're just, part of their developer agreement is to give us $25,000. That's written into a legally binding agreement. We just have to go through the mechanics of requesting it from the developer. They haven't broken ground yet on that project, but it's a commitment. So that $25,000 we can apply to anything. We reached out to Marvin soon after we had that agreement because we wanted to figure out where we could assign that money to a project, and we thought that the Marvin one would work well. At the time, they had a shortfall, and this $25,000 could be used as a essentially the local match to draw down $100,000 of CARTPO money potentially. So long answer, at least $25,000. If Weddington project doesn't go well, could have $100,000. Now that's off of the pilot program from several years ago. that program's been fully committed at this point. It's the board's decision in the future if we recapitalize it.
Commissioner Rushing.
Do we know if the towns can use their COVID CARES Act funding? We know we can use it for infrastructure,
Yes.
but is that road infrastructure included in that?
They have. Commissioner Williams voted, CARPO put $6 million across the 3 counties. We got in excess of $1 million just going towards road resurfacing and other maintenance projects with that type of money.
But the town's money, do we know how much the village of Marvin got?
It's in excess of $1 million.
Yeah, and it was these projects, about a $2 million project?
This project's a little more than $2 million. This project overall is a little more than $2 million.
A little more than 2 million. So there's a potential that they maybe could do something like that with it, and potential.
I don't know what they're,
Because
I don't know if this
if we give
100,000
100,000,
is the complete shortfall.
you're saying the state might match 100,000? Is that what I'm hearing? If we gave, is there,
I don't know what their shortfall is. I don't know what the budget and what the delta is to know what this request that came to us.
I think that would be the purpose of meeting with
joint
them to
meeting.
get those kind of details.
okay. Yeah, but I mean, if y'all agree with that, because I mean, I just think that it's always nice to have a joint meeting with another board anyways, but that way we could all hear, and it wouldn't be 2 commissioners make an agreement that 3 couldn't go with or something. We wouldn't have okay with that.
Okay. County Manager, would you set us up a joint meeting?
Be glad to. Just so, I think I mentioned this, but I want to make sure that I'm clear. The Village of Marvin has been paying for after-hour deputies at the intersection there at Marvin and Newtown. One of their requests is that the county start picking up the expense for that. So you will hear that request from the Village of Marvin when you meet with them. But I'll be glad to set that up, and we'll try to get that done based on the earliest convenience of both boards. Thank you, sir.
And one more caveat to that is Commissioner Helms and I went to one of their meetings maybe 2 years ago, and they've already paid in off-duty deputy time about half the cost of the roundabout. So it's almost like if we'd have known the state wasn't going to take care of us. Yes, sir.
In conversation with some of their officials over there, my question to Bjorn is, DOT has been backing off when they were going to do this. I think the town's already committed $500,000, and they want to go ahead and give it. The DOT won't take it because they won't give them a date when they're going to do this. So if you can, between now and that meet date, give us some information that would help us identify when this thing's going to be targeted, because the longer it goes, and I can tell you, I'm building a house right now, and the longer it goes, the more it costs.
Right.
So,
And this is purely speculative, but in talking with the Weddington folks, I think the fact that they've got Union County Sheriff's Department off-duty officers down there, and they're doing a good job, there's not as many accidents, so it doesn't score as well on the critical intersection. So the fix is hurting them too. All right, we'll look forward to that meeting with Marvin Council. Okay, we need to call the item, the joint resolution in support of ending the contract tracing and quarantine requirements of North Carolina Public Schools for discussion. And I believe going to turn that over to Mr. Kay, and he's going to speak up and talk to us about it.
So Commissioners, what you all have added to your agenda this evening is a joint resolution in support of ending contact tracing and quarantine requirements of North Carolina Public School students. As you all know, the requirements for contact tracing and quarantining come by and through state statute and a series of administrative rules at the state level, which are ministerially administered by our local health director. This resolution would call upon the state to eliminate those two requirements as the pandemic has evolved in such a way that we have additional tools at our disposal now to keep down infection rates, and it has also revealed itself to be a significant source of problems within the school environment, within families, and within employers around the state. So the proposed resolution is in front of you on the screen, but I will read it out so that you can consider each paragraph. There are a number of recitals followed by an action statement at the end. Whereas Union County and Union County Public Schools are committed to protecting the health of all students and staff in the Union County Public School system and to maintaining consistently high standards of student learning and social development. Whereas the Union County community and parents have entrusted to Union County government generally and to the Union County Public Schools specifically the provision of excellent school-based academic and social outcomes for Union County children. Whereas the data and evidence consistently and strongly support in-person learning as the best method for all students to achieve excellent academic outcomes. Whereas the data and evidence consistently and strongly demonstrate that students who are engaged in in-person learning have superior social and psychological outcomes over those students who are sporadically, suddenly, and repeatedly excluded from school due to quarantine requirements. Whereas the data and evidence consistently and strongly demonstrate that students who are sporadically, suddenly, and repeatedly excluded from school due to quarantine requirements have decreased academic performance, increased behavioral issues, and suffer emotional and psychological effects from the isolation and removal from peers. Whereas the large-scale impact of COVID-19 on millions of North Carolinians makes contact tracing and quarantine measures unduly burdensome for local public health officials and school staff, significantly detrimental to the school environment, and highly disruptive to North Carolina families, students, schools, and employers. Whereas the practice of quarantining children and excluding them from in-person student learning imposes substantial costs on employers, special burdens on parents, and is especially detrimental to single parents, legal guardians, and working parents and guardians. Whereas the practice of quarantining school staff and excluding them from in-person instruction and supervision imposes substantial costs and loss of learning due to diminished pools of available substitute teachers, instructional assistants, and building level administrators. Whereas, in light of the development and widespread availability of other effective measures of disease control for COVID-19, such as vaccinations and other treatments, contact tracing and quarantining have diminished in their utility as a primary and efficient mitigation measure for disease control. Whereas the presence of COVID-19 in our state and county is likely to persist well into the future without a known or defined end. Whereas the importance and continuation of isolation protocols for symptomatic individuals and those who test positive for COVID-19 or other communicable diseases are essential for the protection of healthy students, teachers, and staff. Whereas we support the work and guidance of our public health director and will continue to partner with local public health officials to ensure appropriate responses if the data regarding the impacts of COVID-19 on students and staff indicates a need for more intense strategic responses. Whereas Union County and UCPS will work together to safely, lawfully, and effectively seek to end quarantining of healthy, asymptomatic students and staff beginning January 19th of 2022 to minimize the number of missed instructional days to achieve grade promotion. Now, therefore, in consideration of these and other relevant matters, the Union County Board of County Commissioners and the Union County Board of Education hereby jointly and resolutely call upon the state of North Carolina and the Department of Health and Human Services to take whatever actions are necessary to end the practice of contact tracing and quarantining of students on or before January 19th, 2022. Commissioners, that is the resolution that is before you this evening. It is my understanding that it will be before the Union County Public School Board tomorrow evening as well for each of your votes on the joint resolution if you're so inclined.
Thank you, Jason. I want to say one thing before we vote on it, although I would like to take credit for that meeting. It was Commissioner Helms that set it up, and Las Vegas was taking odds on how it was going to work out. But I tell him all the time, his stuff just comes together at the end, and with the brainchild of our county manager and deputy county manager, they worked with Jason and I believe with Michelle Morris, and we're in communication with the chair and the vice chair of UCPS, and I'm just so proud of what we've accomplished. You know, when you struggle with something for a year and then you come up with a solution, this is genius. This is what we should have done to start with. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I make a statement about that meeting. I'll have to say that the manager and Mr. Joyner back there, they brought the point to the fact that, you know, Mr. Joyner has been to Raleigh, and a lot of people don't realize he has facilitated change. Like the antibodies test had multiple parts, and the second part of it was hard to adhere to. But yet he went back to the state and pleaded our case to drop that, and he got that accomplished. And that's what the thought of this is to go back and plead with the state, with this board and this county and school board backing Mr. Joyner to help facilitate them understanding the need for this change. I'll tell you, Mr. Watson was the brainchild of the resolution, and it was brilliant. That was brilliance, Mr. Chairman.
I asked him who come up with the idea, and he said, "You're talking to him."
But it is, the thing about it is the meeting we had, it had state representatives, it had school board representatives, chair and vice chair, it had physician, it had community members that came to share their concerns, and we had staff, Michelle and Mr. Watson were there. It was a good dialogue, and this is what came out of it. So I'd like to commend the manager and Mr. Joyner on what they've been able to produce. Of course, you did the work over the weekend to put it in writing, so we appreciate that.
Dennis, I apologize for not recognizing you were hiding behind that column. So, okay, Stoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And at the same time, you know, these children that have gone through these past year, months, ever since I remember that when Dennis Joyner came to us and said, you know, we just need a couple weeks, you know, and everybody was saying a couple weeks, you know, we just need to wait, see what's going on with this. And we were all cautious as a board. We never shut the county down. The county was shut down by the state. People's livelihoods, people's businesses have been destroyed. One of my favorite restaurants in the county I can't go to anymore because of COVID. They're not there anymore. They went out of business. But these families, these children, the future of this county, they're the ones that have suffered. You know, families in tears, our family in tears over our daughter's, you know, her grades not being counted correctly because her computer wasn't communicating right with the school's computer, and her doing the work 3-4 times. Other families whose children have been quarantined time and time again and never getting it. Children never got it. I just hope that we all and the state learns a strong lesson from this, and that our legislators get behind meaningful legislation to ensure that we never have to go through this again, that if we ever go through a time where a health director like Mr. Joyner has to do something like this or has to get involved in these things, that it is serious and it is clearly defined and that it is not just on speculation and rumor and people's fears, because people can be afraid of a lot of things, especially these days. So I'm going to support this resolution for the children who, again, time and time again have been quarantined and never had a symptom of COVID. And I hope that these families can finally get some peace and move on with their life if the state will work with us and the leadership of this county and the school system shown the number one school system in the state, because they have taken these children and did everything they could to put them back in school and teach them in person, because that's what really matters. And we've seen the value of education and in-person education over the past 2 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And for the benefit of the public, the county manager is going to send this resolution to the other 99 counties, and the school board's going to do the same, send it to the school boards, 114, 15 in the state. So with that being said, all in favor of us approving this resolution, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, now we've
Mr.
got
Mr. Chairman.
something that we pulled off of consent. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When it comes to signatures on this resolution, what's the board's wish? Is it for the chair to execute this resolution, or is it for each board member to sign this resolution?
I would personally like for all of the commissioners to be able to sign it, to show unity and support.
No problem there.
Okay.
Could we have some specific direction?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we all 5 sign this resolution, and we need to get it. It'll have to be done tomorrow because they have their meeting tomorrow night. So, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay, now let's go back. Since John Shutak is not here, Brian?
Yeah,
This may be a quick,
our public works staff member had a conflict, so I'll do my best to answer you.
it'll be a quick thing. It's not. Can I ask
For
the
the
question?
public, it's the short line extension project task order.
Yes, and would you like for me to ask why? The reason I wanted this off the agenda is because you've had calls, I've had emails, maybe some of the others had emails and calls. We've had people come up and ask questions because they had already paid money
Certainly.
into this program, maybe a year or two ago?
At least probably over a year.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So just ensuring that in this, there's no additional cost to those people who've already paid, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
So that they paid, they've done everything.
Yep.
Now, what was unclear to me is when we were talking about, you and I were talking about it, was some of the right-of-ways.
Yes, sir.
And I'm reading this, the right-of-ways were project like utility right-of-ways that were already there, correct?
So what we ran.
Not neighbors telling them they couldn't.
That's right. So what we ran into is that in some cases, the DOT right-of-way is not a owned right-of-way by the state. It's a maintenance right-of-way, so there's no official plat of it. And when it's that case, we actually have to go in and obtain the right-of-way from those property owners. I don't think we've run into any situations where anyone has refused to give us that, but we have to go out and get those easements because the state doesn't have them, so therefore the state can't give us an encroachment agreement in their right-of-way.
And this was not a situation where one guy had in front of his home was not a right-of-way?
I'm not aware of any situations where property owners are refusing at this point in time. Now, understand, we're not finished, so there is a possibility that a property owner could refuse, and we'll have to address that. But right now, I'm not aware of any property owners refusing to participate.
But the cost to the people who already participated is not changing?
It has not changed, no,
Okay.
sir. This is merely the cost for us to do these extra services, not a cost to the applicants.
Okay, so my motion would be to Fund the amendment number 1 in the amount of $99,460 for an updated total contract amount of $553,210 for the short line extension program with this project.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion? All right, call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I know I make mistakes, so I believe we're down to county manager comments unless I've left something off.
I think you're correct, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and board, members of the board, a couple of things this evening. First of all, again, congratulations to Chairman Rape and Vice Chairman Williams on your election. We all are looking forward to serving with you. You have the commitment of staff that whatever you need, we're there. Commissioner Helms, thank you, sir, for your leadership and guidance over this past year. It's been a pleasure working with you in that capacity. To the repair teams, the hydrant teams, and specifically Mr. Greg Morgan, who were the recipients of the awards earlier this evening, congratulations and thank you. I know they're not here with us right now, but I hope they see this. Thank you for all the hard work, dedication to this organization and to this community that you show every day when you come to work. You know, as I listened to all of the things that went into that competition and the practices that they had to have and the skills that they honed, believe you me, when you get the phone call at midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning about the pipeline, the water pipe is burst, or the pump station is running over, and you make the phone call to the service crew, they are on the job. They are there. The sheriff has experienced that at least twice. You know, I would say over the past 18 months. And we appreciate those men and women that get out there in the middle of the night and dig those holes, dig those trenches, get that pipe up, replace it, and get it back in working order. We cannot say thank you and how much we appreciate what they do enough. Greg Morgan, I think you all have had time to spend with Greg as we have toured some wastewater facilities recently, talking about infiltration and the things that are being done to mitigate all of that infiltration into our system, to make sure that every gallon of available capacity in our treatment plants is there and available, not to treat rainwater, but to be able to be used by the residents of this county that pay for it. And Mr. Greg Morgan is the reason that our systems are becoming more and more and more efficient. Additionally, this evening, I would like to acknowledge our volunteer fire departments and the job that they did over the Thanksgiving holiday. For those of you who may not be aware, over the Thanksgiving holiday, we had numerous structure fires. There were numerous house fires across the county, numerous brush fires, and it seemed over a period of 3 or 4 days that, you know, one would finish up and then another one would break out. And some departments and some crews were just constantly engaged in major firefighting activities. If it wasn't that, it was rescue operations, removing people from that were pinned into automobiles that had flipped over, or it was responding to the more than usual number of medical calls that happened over the Thanksgiving holiday. I don't know if it was a phase of the moon or what it was that created that type of situation, but our volunteer fire departments, our EMS folks, and our 911 center were very busy, and I want them to know how much I appreciate them. And to the points that were made earlier, just a few minutes ago, about the meeting on Friday, where a lot of these points were hammered out that were placed into this resolution. To the 15 people that attended that, there were state legislators, there were county commission, there was Board of Education members, there was staff members from the county, there were staff members from public health, there were staff members from the school system, there were parents, moms there that, as Commissioner Rushing, you stated, you know, it's the impacts on the mothers and the families, and there were physicians there that all had input into, you know, what needs to happen to bring some resolution to the situation that we have all been facing and that has been so frustrating to deal with at every level. I appreciate all their input, and I hope that that hard work pays off with the state of North Carolina deciding to go in a little bit different direction and give us some latitude to manage things a little bit differently on the local level. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Commissioner Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to fall right in and say ditto to those comments, Mr. Manager, and thank all of those folks who participated in that meeting and brought about the resolution that we just approved. There's right ways and there's wrong ways to resolve issues, and I believe that the hard work that this group put together is a credit to our county, and applaud all those who took that direction. Congratulations to Commissioner Rape and Commissioner Williams. I look forward to your leadership in 2022. And I believe we have a budget workshop on the 17th. Is that correct? That's correct. But having said that, I believe this is our last formal Board of County Commissioners meeting before the holidays. So I wish safety and enjoyment to everyone during the holidays, and hopes for a prosperous 2022. Thank you.
Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And congratulations to Chairman Rape and Vice Chairman Williams. And hope that this coming year we'll be able to hammer out a lot of issues. You know, when we found out tonight, you know, when we're here tonight, we're paying for 14 and only getting 5 ambulances. Commissioner Helms, I look forward to working with you to get the Union County taxpayers what they're paying for. And with that, I wish everyone a good night.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just keep it brief, and I'd like to extend to my colleagues and to county staff and citizens of the county, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Commissioner Helms.
Appreciate it. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Chairman Rape and Vice Chairman Williams for taking the leadership roles. I know we're in good hands. I'd like to also congratulate the utility teams for their accomplishment and demonstrating the talent that Union County is known for, and also Mr. Morgan on his accomplishment. I agree with the manager, and we heard something tonight about EMS getting money. So our firefighters and our sheriff's department, they work hard. So when we start talking budget, we need to talk about taking care of them as well, and I look forward to that. I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and look forward to this coming year.
I would like to thank everybody for your support, and I'm humbled I will tell you, each one of y'all, I take things away from what you do, and I admire. Stoney, I think it was a good move to put you with Richard on that EMS thing, since you were there. Y'all can play good cop, bad cop, and on that one, Richard will be the bad cop.
They're in trouble.
Two things that Richard has a passion about is EMS and somebody parking in the manager's spot when his car is not here. When you said you look forward to fixing issues, I used to ask Jerry the year he was chairman, I'd say, well, what else do we need to do? And he said, well, we ain't got this done. I'd say, well, we got Yadkin done. He said, well, we ain't got the FERC permit yet. So we're gonna fix as much as we can. And sometimes it's knowing who to put in the game. I did not go to that meeting Friday. I could have. I knew I would not really be able to contribute anything. I think you're the right person to go with Richard over there. Not that David wouldn't do a good job, but a lot of times it boils down to head knowledge. I am humbled. I'm glad the sheriff was here. I've known him a long time. My mama worried him to death with people backing out of the driveway across from her house and burning out. She went to church with him, so she felt like he was her sheriff. And but thank you for everything. I look forward to a great year. And law enforcement and schools and EMS, all that is the things that makes Union County great. So, and Jerry, somebody asked today at the Board of Elections, they said, when's Jerry filing? And I believe me and Stoney both said, you can't count him out till 1 hour after noon on 12/17. And Tony Underwood said he holds his Tony Underwood said he holds his cards close to his chest, and I thought, he sticks them in a pocket and then puts 2 coats on. You can never see them. But that's a good thing. Jerry told me one time, keep your powder dry and wait. So with that, call for a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Stoney. You take it.